Hey guys, real pleasure to have Bill Berutti and Jerry Foster again, CEO and CTO at Plex. I should have had them on Friday, which is National Manufacturing Day. I let them spend the weekend enjoying football. Great to have both of you back. You know, you two were the earliest executives I interviewed back in this series back in April. So thank you for coming back. I'd also interviewed Dennis Hodges and Paul Wright, two of your customers as part of this series. So first of all, let's talk about your personal lives. How has it been physically, mentally, spiritually? Hopefully everything has been going well.
Well, I'm happy to go first. Thanks, Vinnie, and it's a pleasure to be here with you again. Obviously we're living in strange times and we're all learning how to adapt. I would say there've been some blessings. I've had a lot more time with my family, which has been wonderful, and we're all trying to stay healthy. You mentioned kind of routines. I think it has been important to try to find new routines, without traveling as much and all the things that we're used to doing, going to the office as much. For me, figuring out how to get in daily exercise has been really critical, and just, making sure that we stay busy, which is a big part of staying mentally healthy. I will admit one failing though, which is that my wife's good cooking has been, I've been a victim of it, and I've definitely put on some of those COVID pounds people are talking about.
COVID kilos, as an Australian said. How about you, Jerry? You look like you lost some weight.
I have been losing some weight, although I will say to start off, I'm a Detroit Lions fan, so I didn't really enjoy any football. We don't enjoy our football. We just yell and scream at the TV. So yeah, I've been working. I'm a big racquetball player. That's my weight losing mechanism, and so of course we couldn't do that this summer. So I actually took up a new sport, if you will. I started riding my bike, or I bought a bike and started riding that, and I really enjoyed that. I do about 20 miles every other day, and I've really enjoyed doing that. And like Bill said, just being with the family. When was the last time you remember having multiple weekends in a row in the summer where you didn't have things to do and places to go? And with our kids being home, we just enjoyed that family time. And then of course my faith in God and my church really helped be an anchor during this time. So all the things together, actually, it's one of those things where, there's lots of difficulty and people were negatively impacted severely. And that's difficult. But at the same time for us, we had some good times this summer.
And it's so nice to have you talking positive, right? There's a lot of doom and gloom. So let's talk about acrobatics, because that's the focus of this series. Bill and Jerry, tell us about some of the heroics you've seen in the summer in your manufacturing customer base. As they've reopened plants, or you looked at all kinds of confusing guidance, right? Tell us about some of the heroics.
Yeah, Vinnie, I'll give you a couple of quick examples. In our automotive customer base, we've talked about the fact that we had a large number of suppliers that pivoted to make, whether it was ventilator parts or face masks or other forms of PPE. One in particular, which is a consistent story, when automotive began to shut down around the globe, kind of in series, their plants were shuttered, and they quickly pivoted to make face masks. And one of the things that was really powerful was not just how quickly they were able to reorient their manufacturing output, but also they took advantage of the power of SaaS, Plex being a SaaS-based solution, so that they could have essential workers in the plant and everybody else at home, but continuing to work off of the same technology and data set. And then that also allowed them to have those non-essential folks planning for the restart, because as automotive began to come out of the shutdown, those folks needed to think about supply chains and manufacturing operations, and how do we prepare to restart. And this one that I'm referring to in particular, that's making face shields, is now back to supporting the production in automotive, which I think we're all excited to see kind of that rebound coming. And they're operating between 120 and 130% of pre-COVID production output. So, they're able to really bounce back and be healthy again as a company. I'll give you one more, and Vinnie, we may have talked about this once before, but there's some updated news. One of our customers, Old Thompson, which is one of the largest spice manufacturers in the world, and they provide spices to grocery stores and so on. You might remember that they used our technology first in the supply chain area to be able to go pool supply from around the world as countries were shuttering their borders. And they were able to corner the market on a bunch of spices as they saw the supply chains getting roiled with COVID, which then led them to be able to take market share from their competitors and actually grow revenue 60% year over year throughout the pandemic, which is just incredible. And by the way, we helped them on the front end with the demand planning. But then once they had to increase production with the same plant and equipment, they were able to operate at 160% of capacity and grow, leveraging the value of Plex. Well, the update to that great story is that they've done so well that they announced just in the last couple of weeks that they are acquiring and doing a merger of equals with another spice manufacturer called Gel, based out my way here in New Jersey in the Northeast. And they're doubling the size of the company. Oh, wow. And they're not doing it from a position of weakness. They're doing it from a position of strength during this chaos. And again, it was, their ability to leverage smart manufacturing to put themselves in a position to be able to do that.
And with the stay-at-home cooking, I don't think demand's going to go down anytime soon.
Yes.
That's great to hear. Jerry, we've seen, especially on the revenue side, we've seen some amazing new functionality that companies have needed, right? Telemedicine in healthcare, PPP loans in banking as they gave 5 million small business loans, last mile delivery, et cetera, et cetera. Have you seen a similar spike in feature requests as manufacturers have defined their own operations?
Yeah, definitely. And we've seen a number of things, and we've kind of seen three significant outcomes from the pandemic. And the first one, Bill already touched on, and that's just the benefits of cloud being reinforced in real time. And then as time has gone on, we're seeing that over and over. And the customers that we work with that use Plex, since they run their systems in the cloud, they're able to remain operational as they pivoted to a mostly remote workforce. And you can contrast that to some of our customers who had on-prem systems. That transition was much more difficult. They felt like they were in the dark. And then they had to make some real hard choices about balancing health and social distancing. Do we bring workers into the plant so we can keep running, or do we lose that business and keep them safe? And those are hard choices that our cloud-based customers really didn't have to make as much. The second area that we saw technology-wise and change-wise coming through the pandemic was supply chain planning. We've noticed an uptick in the usage of certain functionality that customers have found more critical before. For example, in our Demandcaster product, there's a feature that allows customers to delete a period of time in order to avoid skewing future planning algorithms. Everyone's like, delete March and April and June. We don't want that. So that was a feature that they used quite a bit. But then we had customers that said, we don't want that just to be deleted. That's like this gap. So we actually put in a new feature in Demandcaster that allowed them to enter negative events into the demand plan to compensate, so that next year when they do their forecasting, it'll be adjusted accordingly, but there's not a gap there. There's actually something there that they can see, so we'll see what actually happened. And the third area that we've seen a huge uptick in change and innovation is really around automation. As long as I've been in manufacturing, manufacturers are always trying to be more efficient, right? How do we do more with less? But now you have to do that in the middle of a pandemic while social distancing. And so that really comes down to automation tools. And we've seen a few things there. Cobots, you can imagine a production line that's not easily moved and requires people to work in proximity on that line. How do you account for that? Well, now you've got cobots, which kind of were a luxury. Manufacturers are kind of stingy. They don't like spending money, but now it's not a luxury anymore. I can put cobots in on that line and still maintain my production output and my efficiency. We've seen a huge uptick in IoT and requests there as you realize the benefits of maintaining visibility into what's happening with the assets on the shop floor without actually having to be there. And you can monitor that production, that quality, and that traceability. And the last thing I'll talk about that's been real fascinating is wearables and augmented reality. And we've been kind of on the forefront of that for a number of years, showing how you can use wearables and augmented reality on the shop floor. And just kind of like cobots, it's been a bit of a push getting our customers to maybe think about how we, should we spend money on that technology? But now you think about, I've got a remote workforce and I've got something happening on the shop floor. How can I do support? how can I do maintenance? But now with like a Microsoft HoloLens, we have customers who are actually putting a HoloLens on workers in the shop floor, and then having their maintenance people at a separate remote location. And so the remote maintenance person can see everything that the shop floor worker sees. He walks around the work center or the machine or the floor, and they communicate real time, and they can actually be the eyes and ears and body of that person in the shop floor. So that's been really interesting to see how this pandemic has actually started to accelerate and push technologies that were on the fringe, but now is front of mind, because how else do you solve some of these problems? So yeah, we've seen a huge uptick in all those different things. It's been pretty amazing.
Jerry touched on it a little bit, but in April, we had talked about growing sentiment for bringing manufacturing back home. Are you seeing momentum on that? And if they are, where are they finding their component suppliers? Where are they finding their blue collar talent? Or is it automation, as Jerry mentioned?
Yeah, it's interesting, Vinny. We definitely are seeing a trend towards whether it's reshoring, or maybe even in many cases kind of nearshoring, and I think obviously that takes time, right? You can't open up a new manufacturing facility overnight. But in the first phase of what we're seeing a lot of clients talk about this idea of nearshoring. They don't want an ocean between them and their suppliers and their finished production and their actual end customer. And so we're seeing that both in the US and also, as Jerry indicated, reflected in whether it's Mexico or even Canada. Let's get closer to North America. We're also seeing in that vein automation being applied and the desire for automation to be at greater levels. Now, I would, as you stated earlier, remind us that Manufacturing Day was last Friday, and it's Manufacturing Month, and a big initiative for that is bringing more people into the workforce to be a part of manufacturing. And Plex is proud to be a sponsor of Manufacturing Day and Manufacturing Month, and to be a big advocate for bringing more people into the manufacturing workforce. But having said that, our customers are struggling to find those people. They're struggling with an aging workforce. They're struggling with young people not wanting to be in manufacturing. So as much as we need to draw them in, we also need to drive automation, because if we're going to see manufacturing activity in North America pick up, which, as Jerry showed, we are, and it's going to increase, then we're going to have to drive automation as one of the levers. The second thing I'd say is that a lot of our customers are waiting for the kind of the second wave. The first wave was prior tax legislation, COVID, and the disruption to supply chains and the desire to nearshore. Whatever politics occur over the next few months, a lot of our customers believe that there will be additional incentive from either party for legislation to bring more back to particularly the U.S. And through that vein, they're kind of waiting for that legislation to rethink the next level of manufacturing in the U.S.
And I would just add to that, before this pandemic, there's lots of talk about automation and robots and taking jobs, and how how that was going to be a huge negative impact. And I'm looking at this going, thank goodness for automation. Where would we have been without having those technologies available to us to compensate and help get us through this? So it's kind of a mix, but it's been a really interesting.
Yeah, I agree, Jerry. I mean, ultimately, we want to see, and I believe we will see, more people come into the workforce. But our customers that are operating at 120, 130% of productive capacity right now compared to previous, without automation, they wouldn't be able to do that because they cannot bring people into the workforce fast enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the onus is on everybody, me, others, to also encourage people not to go into white collar education. I mean, we desperately need more trade and blue collar talent.
Yep.
So,
Yes.
That won't solve their problems, customer problems overnight. But next 2-3 years, we need to encourage that in our younger folks. So, Jerry, you said cloud apps are done well. I've heard that from several different CIOs. I mean, I'm surprised they don't use more cuss words when they talk about on-premise, right? Bill, what has that meant for your pipeline? Are you seeing more interest? Are you seeing people re-up? Because I know people like Paul Wright still have a bunch of on-premise, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Paul's got some pretty good stories, Vinnie, about how well the transition through COVID worked with Plex versus his operations that aren't on Plex. He's got some pretty good metrics there. Yeah, we're seeing lots of really positive signs. You know, our business has remained healthy through this. We're growing this year. Renewal rates are good. All that's positive. But obviously there's lumpiness, right? Some manufacturers are doing really well and have no cash constraints. Some are doing okay. And then some, you know, are expecting to recover, but have some capital constraints given, you know, the capital intensity of manufacturing, of course. What I can tell you is that in addition, though, to generating a lot of new business and a lot of new customers, the most exciting part of answering your question for me is this intense interest in smart manufacturing and cloud and SaaS-based solutions that's occurred. And what I can tell you is this: number one, our top of funnel metrics, so the marketing metrics that indicate interest in our smart manufacturing solutions, it is literally at an all-time high, off the charts, record-breaking, you know, in terms of responding to our campaigns and hits on our website and interest in our digital content, off the chart. The second thing that I can tell you is that our pipeline for new customer business is also at an all-time high. So, you know, we believe that over the next few quarters, you know, as this begins to really mature, you're going to see a lot more adoption of cloud-based smart manufacturing solutions.
And Bill, in April, you told me you had closed some deals without stepping in the customer facility, right? That was kind of unheard of in software before. Has that trend continued?
It has. It has. We had 6 additional go lives in Q3. All went really well. And, you know, we're doing most of the front end work remote, most of the actual development of the finished solution with the customer to configure it. And then in terms of final implementation, we've still had go lives that have gone on without anybody on site. And then in certain cases, you know, if it's appropriate then and safe, then we'll have someone go on site to help with the training of the shop floor professionals, because, you know, that's in part, if it's an important part of their success, given the complexity of their workforce, then we'll do that, but we'll do it in a safe manner. And that's continued forward. And you know, Vinnie, we were talking earlier about kind of resiliency and adaptability. You know, it's incredible to me to watch how our customers and Plex have adopted to this new reality and figured out how to move forward and still generate those same productive outcomes.
So, Jerry, are you more of a salesman at this point? sounds like Bill is keeping you busy.
Bill keeps us all busy. Don't be. You know what's interesting, Vinnie, is Bill touched on this, but we've been talking about our customers innovating. It's been cool watching our sales and field organization innovate, right? How do you sell in a way you've never sold before? And there's one story of some of our salespeople sending a GoPro with almost a treasure hunt type questionnaire to one of our customers who got very excited about running around the plant, filming all these various things, and then just sent the GoPro back. And we had everything we needed to start that sales process. So it's been fun watching our people innovate as well.
You know, that's pretty innovative, right? Because you do need to walk around. It's management walking around, selling by walking around. So I'm glad you guys continue to do that. Yeah. Bill and Jerry, last time I asked you if you saw sharp recovery or V recovery, kind of a gradual U, kind of a choppy W or an L. Now, you know, in politics, we've heard of a K recovery. Some industries doing great, others kind of headed downwards. What are you hearing from customers, what their plans look like, and, you know, what their IT spend is going to be the next few quarters?
Yeah, I would say, generally speaking, Vinnie, we're seeing a strong recovery, and it's evidenced in the data that Jerry shared. You know, now that we're back to right around 100% plus or minus pre-COVID levels for total production output, and in general, I think the focus on technology being a key enabler for the future is causing our customers to say we're going to spend the same or we're going to spend more on technology, and in most cases more. And further, you know, the ones that are healthy are making those decisions now, and the ones that aren't are saying, all right, we're going to make a decision, but give me a quarter or two to get a little bit past the recovery. Now, I do agree, though, that there's a lumpiness, and certainly outside of Plex's domain, we can talk about service and travel and restaurants that are struggling, and we all know that and feel for those folks in those industries. Within our domain of manufacturing, I would say overall, what I said is true. Pretty quick recovery, and a view that this is going to be sustainable. And again, manufacturing has been incredibly resilient to put in place safe practices to be able to operate manufacturing facilities. Having said that, listen, our customers that are in commercial aerospace, they're worried about how quickly the recovery occurs. So there are pockets where it's weaker, but automotive's seen a strong recovery, industrial's seen a strong recovery, food and beverage never lost a beat. So overall, pretty positive.
Dennis Hodges, when I interviewed him around the same time I interviewed you guys, he said, "Hey, look, if I look at my EDI transactions from customers, it's going to be a recovery." He was that confident. So, it's great.
Yeah, automotive's an interesting one, Vinnie, because obviously having shut down the industry for a period of time, there's going to be a bounce back. But I can tell you, in addition to that, though, there's just a lot of demand for vehicles. My wife's interested in a new car right now, and the one that she wants, she's going to have to wait 6 months to get it.
Wow.
And it's not just because of the roiling of the supply chain through the shutdown. It's also because this new reality of people living at home and moving to the burbs and maybe not wanting to take public transportation or Uber all the time, they want cars. And so it's changing buying behaviors that we saw pre-COVID as well.
Jerry, did you mean to say something on that?
I was just going to add to what Bill said as far as the alphabet is concerned. I think we're seeing more of a U with the recovery, just a little more slanted, and that's what the data is showing us across most of our industries and our customers. So at least that's what we've been seeing so far.
We need to get the two of you out more and tell more positive stuff.
Yeah. Yes.
Any other thoughts, Bill? Any other thoughts you want to share?
Well, I would just say, first, Vinnie, I really appreciate you doing these, because I think all of us in the industry sharing what we're seeing is so important right now, and we can learn from each other. My final statement would just be kind of the obvious one, which is, all of us have to embrace change, and I'm really proud of how much our customers have embraced change, and the ones that really saw this not as just a headwind, but as an opportunity to do things differently, whether it was to make PPE or embrace smart manufacturing technology or to pivot to a new, industry type, they're thriving. And similarly, I'm really proud of what we've been able to accomplish at Plex by pivoting to be able to sell and service and implement and support our customers remotely. And, when we embrace change then we thrive. And I would encourage everybody to have that attitude.
Well, Bill, I've been doing this for a selfish reason, because every interview I've done, you guys are so positive and so optimistic. And then I get out and look at the media and social media, and everything is doom and gloom. So this keeps me positive. So thank you for your service. Keep doing what you're doing. And I'll keep passing your message on.
Good.
Thanks, Vinnie. Stay safe.
Take care.